Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, today we're actually going to get some work done on the GTO project, and I'm calling this Project Ruby. So I went back and forth. I had a whole list, a notepad of names that I liked, and I just kept coming back to Ruby. So, and really, hopefully when the car's done, it's going to shine like a Ruby. So from now on, we're calling the car Ruby. So Project Ruby, here we go. Today we need to get some measurements before the car is torn apart. I don't want to tear it apart and then be wondering, okay, how far was the frame off the ground at the right height I like? What was the wheel spacing? All that kind of stuff. I want to do it now before the car's torn apart with all the weight. Everything that's on it is on it. Now, obviously, we're going to have a different weight bias when the car is built because I'll be putting, aluminum heads and there'll be a lot of different things on it. But at least I have some sort of educated guess, a starting point to go from instead of just making wild guesses later on when it's just a chassis laying there with nothing on it. So we're going to get the car clean. I got the foam cannon out. I've already sprayed the car with some bug spray, try to kill some of those critters in there. We're going to get the car as clean as possible so it's at least okay to work on, to start tearing it apart. Then we're going to measure, we're going to raise it up and down to get the right height, so I like the way it looks. And then we're going to measure the frame to the ground. So I have some numbers to go by when the frame is sitting inside the garage and we're trying to mock everything up. We're also going to be trying to figure out what our wheel diameter, tire and rim diameter is going to be, what's going to look good. And then we're going to need to measure the weight on the rear end, what that spring rate is. So when I put coilovers on it, I know what spring rate to get. Once again, I don't want to make guesses. You can say, well, just order the GMA body coilovers. But the problem is, you guys saw that 65 Chevelle is a GMA body. And this GTO is way bigger and way heavier. So, that's just, I'd rather do it more scientifically than that. So we're going to get in there and get some weight measurements on that, hopefully. And then we're going to go from there. So let's fire up the pressure washer and the foam cannon, get this thing clean. I'll super speed through that, and then we'll let it dry a little bit, and then we'll start getting some measurements. Okay, that's cleaner. Let's let it dry a little bit and we'll get to work. Okay, it's drying up so we can crawl up underneath there now. So the ride height, I want the back end lower than it is right now, obviously. I'd like it, but I still want some rake to it. And I'd like to lower the front, but here, let me show you. Okay, you see that right there? That's the cross member, and that thing, you can barely run over a soda can laying on its side without it hitting. So that is absolutely the lowest I can go in the front and be reasonably, be able to drive the thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure the frame height in the front from the ground, And then I'm going to work on trying to adjust the back. I'll probably pull the rear springs out and then just lower it down with a jack and then prop it up on some jack stands to try to get the height I want. And then we're going to take, I'll make a drawing of the car, some crude Fred Flintstone looking drawing, I'm sure, but and then I'll just kind of sketch out what the dimensions are of the frame off the ground. And then we're going to start working on wheel spacing and some other stuff. So let me get a jack underneath this thing and try to get those rear springs out, see if we can get the back end the height I want, and then we can go from there. Okay, we got both the springs out. They look about the same height. We're not going to reuse them, so it doesn't really matter as far as their height. Now the car's sitting at just about where it was with the springs installed. Obviously there's no gas in the gas tank. There's no spare tire, not that I'm going to carry a spare tire, you know, when the car's done. But this is pretty much how it's going to sit. So what I want to do is get the jack stands down to a height where I think it looks good. Hopefully you guys think it looks good. It's got too much rake on it right now. I want to flatten it out a little bit. I want just a little bit of a rake, and then hopefully it looks really nice when it's all done. All right, let's lower those jack stands down a little bit. Okay, although that looked better, the natural lines of this car make the back seem higher than it really is anyways. As the quarter panel rises right here, it kind of gives it a pretty good rake. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it down a little bit more and see how it looks. Well, I think it looks better. It just still seems way too high to me. I don't know, let me look at it. From this angle, I think it looks really good. I'm really liking the way it's coming at you. I'm going to drop it just a little bit more and see how I feel about it. And then, if nothing else, we can go back to this height. But that's why we're doing it right now. I want to figure it out before we get into, you know, start cutting and welding and doing a bunch of other stuff. And the body is not even here probably when we start work on the suspension for the rear. So I'm going to drop it down a little bit more. I'll bring it back. We'll take a look at it, maybe do kind of a before and after on the two different heights and see which one I like. Okay, so I raised the camera because I realized not everybody's going to be squatting down to look at the car, so it'll be basically eye view. This is a little bit, this is, I don't know, 4 feet off the ground, the camera lens, so try to get a little bit more inline perspective. So this is position 1, or the highest it would be. Okay, position 2, middle, let's say. Okay, here's position 3, the lowest. Okay guys, I know which position I like. It's number 3, the lowest, of course. So I don't want the top of the door to go lean backwards. And I've got a level on here and it's reading almost exactly level, perfect. So, you know, we don't want the lowrider look, we want it hot rod look, right? So even at the lowest position, the way the shoulder comes up here and with the moldings and the way the quarter panel rises up on the bottom there, it still gives it, you know, quite a bit of look like it's, you know, heading downhill. So, and that's really the look I want. Now, I considered doing a body drop on this car, which is pretty involved, but I don't know if I want to do that. And then I also considered doing a panel drop where we just add on to all the panels, and so they go lower around the frame so you can keep the frame higher and drive it, but the body actually sits a lot lower without doing a body drop. So we're going to kind of figure that out as we go. I think it looks great the way it is, so we don't need to go to super extremes, but you know, we'll kind of decide that as we go. But I vote for number 3. You guys drop me a comment. Let me know which one you guys want. So let's move on to figure out what size tire and rim size. Okay, what we have here is a couple of mock-ups of wheel sizes. So this is a 17-inch rim, and I've got 2 different size tire. I've got it labeled on here so I'll remember. So the front is actually fairly easy. I know I'm running 17s up here. How much tire, how much offset, we'll figure that out as we go. But this is pretty much going to be set. The problem is the back. I don't know if I want to run a 17 back there or an 18. Now I like, I don't like super low profile tires. I like a little bit of meat between the rim and the tire. I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels when you're driving. So this is an 18. And I've got you know, several different size tires laid out on here, so to see how it looks. Now I'm kind of feeling that the 18 is a little big. I don't know. It feels like the rim is a little too big in diameter, but I think once the rim, because the rim is going to be 12 inches wide probably, and the tire is going to be 11 and a half or 12 inches wide, so it's going to look really good. I just don't want to go too gigantic. I want to stay, you know, obviously I don't want to run 15s, but you know, running 17s back here wouldn't be the end of the world. And in fact, if we pull this out, we put the 17 up here. Now this is just about the same diameter, a little bit larger than the tire that's on here. Those are 15s, and that looks a little small to me. It's not filling up the wheel well enough. You know, I think there's just too much room here on the front and back, and I like to have the wheel well really filled up. So I'm thinking if I go with a 17, then I'm gonna have a lot of tire, and finding tires that are the right size. I think I'm gonna go with Nittos. They're reasonably priced, and for the size rims I'm using, they have a pretty good selection. Obviously you get up to 22 inch rims, there's all kinds of sizes, but when you're in the 17, 18 inch rim size, there's not a lot of sizes available. So, you know, you're gonna have to pick and choose what you do. So I'm thinking 18s back here. And that fills up the wheel well a little bit more. And then I could get, let's see, that's a 285/40 18. So that's a good sized tire, you know. And like I said, it's going to be that wide. The rim's going to be nice and deep since we have that shortened rear end. So I think it's going to look really good. So I'm kind of leaning towards the 18s on the back and 17s on the front. So let me know what you guys think. Okay, it's time to figure out how much this thing weighs back here. So what I got is a block of wood, the exact same height as what that jack stand was, at the right height they think I'm going to be using. And actually borrowed that scale from my neighbor. I don't weigh myself, so let's see what this thing's going to weigh on each side. Let's wake this thing up. All right, let's lower it down. Okay. Looks like 300, jack is clear, 376 pounds, let's say. All right, 378. Okay, I'm gonna weigh the other side just to make sure they're both even, and then we'll start figuring some stuff out. Okay guys, I got pretty much all the measurements I needed. I still need to do some offsets, so we'll use these rims to figure out. I'm going to look up underneath there and see how those tires fit inside there. I know the width, and then we'll use this offset if it looks good for when I order the actual rims I'm going to use. The front, I'll do the same because that tire actually sits in there pretty good. Once we put the new spindles on and everything, it pushes it out a little bit farther, but I do have disc brakes on here already, so I'll measure from the frame over to the front of the disc brake where the rim sits, and then once we get the new system on, we'll compare that measurement, compare it to the offset that seemed to work pretty good already, and then we'll be able to, you know, kind of figure out what offset to order the rims at. So the next thing is just to crawl up underneath there. I can't take you with me. The car's sitting so low to the ground, and I don't have a wheel lift. I don't have any lift. So I've got my redneck creeper right here, and I'm just gonna slide underneath there. The measurements I need to look at is right where the frame hump is and right where the tube of the axle is. So I can figure out what my travel distance is there, how much room we have, also where the pumpkin is, how much clearance we have that to the top, you know, the bottom of the body there, and figure all that out. So later we can determine where we can put some bracing, where, you know, when we set up the suspension for the rear, we know we won't have any clearance issues. And then it'll give us kind of a good idea for our exhaust system and everything else. So I'm gonna take some pictures, I'm gonna take some measurements, I'm gonna take some notes, and just kind of get this all figured out, and at least on paper, so later down the road, I'm not really guessing on, you know, and hoping that it works, and putting the body on and off a bunch of times when I really don't want to. So I'm just gonna crawl underneath here, we'll get all the measurements, and then I think we'll wrap this one up. Oh yeah, this is fun. Yeah, this thing's sitting low to the ground. And I'll also take my measurements on the travel for the shocks for the coilover, so I know they're not going to bottom out and not overextend. So I'll have to get all those measurements as well. But yeah, there's the Black Widow underneath here. Ah, good times. Okay guys, that pretty much wraps up this video on Project Ruby. We got a lot of good measurements, got a lot of good video for me to kind of browse back through and decide, you know, if I really want number 3 or number 2 or number 1. Crawling up underneath there just now, number 3 is the absolute lowest it can go, guys. You know, there's like 4 inches of clearance for everything for the rear end to travel up inside there. And I don't want to be, you know, on the bump stops all the time. I want it to ride nice, I want it to handle nice. So we're starting to run out of room. To go any lower, really, we'd have to start tubbing it. We'd have to start chopping the trunk up and raising that up and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And I really don't want to go through all that just for another 3/4 of an inch or something. So I'm going to be smart about it, not dig myself a hole that's going to take forever to get out of, just for a little bit of improvement. Not to mention, I want to put a Watts link or a Panhard bar on this car, because this car always kind of, you know, wandered off back and forth when you were going around a corner, and these tires are going to be filling up those wheel wells all the way, and I don't want them rubbing, and I want it to handle nice. So I want it to nice and firm ride. Not a sports car, but you know, a GTO is not a sports car, but I still want it to corner really nice. So thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Mash that bell icon and drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next one.